So it was about 6 years ago. The person I was married to called me to tell me that he had done something inappropriate with my oldest daughter, who was underage. And so that moment brought me to my knees because I started to wait, how did this happen? This couldn't happen in my family. And I started seeing that this was generational trauma. Men were never really taught that they can relax, they can have a place to cry. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to show softness. It's okay to say, I need you. It's okay to get down on your knees and apologize or be apologized to. Because conflict isn't about what was said, it's about what was felt. When our bodies and hearts interpreted in the split-second moment that no one else saw. And that's what I like to call emotional impact.
Stories and Stanza is a podcast exploring creativity, resilience, and the transformative power of human stories. Through our two series, Between the Lines with creators and Fail With Me focusing on wellness and life's challenges, we bring you authentic conversations with inspiring voices from around the world. If you are drawn to meaningful dialogue that both comforts and challenges, follow us on YouTube or any podcast platform. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Stories and Stanza. Today, I welcome our guest Laziena to talk about her book, her work, and her ideas. Hi, Laziena. Welcome to Stories and Stanza. How are you doing today?
I am wonderful. Thank you. I've been looking forward to this all day long. I finally took a nap because I was like, I need to calm down. I'm a little too excited.
Thank you for joining us today, and I look forward to hearing all your ideas from you. And for anyone who has joined us for the first time, Stories and Stanza is a podcast with two series in which I speak. One of the section is Between the Lines, where I speak to writers about the craft, and the other one is called Fail With Me, where I speak to creators, speakers, coaches, doctors, people from different profession who have an idea about wellness in light of failure. So if you like meaningful discussions, please follow us in a platform of your choice. So coming to today's discussion, tell us a little bit about yourself, Rosina.
I'm Laziena Hodge, and I am the creator of the Relationship Repair Language. That work focuses on helping people understand what they actually need whenever there's conflict, so conversations can move forward towards repair instead of disconnection. And when people talk about conflict in relationship, the conversation usually goes about nervous system regulation. And that is really a part of it. But what I began noticing in my very own life, and this is really what the book is about, is that it's usually something deeper. We have relational needs, we have emotional impact moments that's happened and they were not acknowledged. And whenever those needs aren't acknowledged or they go unmet, our nervous system starts to search, for safety. We start to look for our parents to soothe us. We start looking for somebody to help us to regulate or to say, hey, see me, like I'm here. And so the beginning of this work actually came from the relationship I was in. Every time we had conflict, it felt like in the moment we didn't repair. We just understood each other, and that would carry over. And then one of us would still be holding on to something that wasn't resolved. And then later, when there's another moment of conflict, we were not able to receive each other. We understand our love languages, we understand our attachment style. We were setting boundaries, but during conflict, we were still having trouble staying connected. And so that's when I started to pay more attention to how I behave when I have an unmet need and how that affects other people. And in doing that, it has completely repaired my relationship with my children. And so the relationship repair language came about because of every time my children and I had some kind of a disconnection, I would try different things to see how they would be able to receive. And it's been incredible so far to have this lived experience on paper in a way that kind of maps out how we can truly be in connection with each other instead of having those little resentment moments built up over time and our relationships aren't safe anymore.
That is beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing such a wonderful work in this space in today's time, because the the society is changing, and
Hmm.
then it is very hard for a lot of people to adapt and understand and position themselves in a way that they can they can improve on their relationships. And tell us a little bit about how this started. That, just I'm just curious about how it started, and then we will hear from you into the theory.
Okay, so how it started is a long story, but it's a little tragic. A little trauma came with it, right? So it was about 6 years ago. My The person I was married to called me to tell me that he had done something inappropriate with my oldest daughter, who was underage. And so that moment like brought me to my knees because I started to like, wait, how did this happen? This couldn't happen in my family. And I started seeing that this was generational trauma. I'm like, I grew up in an environment that had a lot of sexual abuse happens, a lot of molestation and things like that were being hidden. And so when I saw that it was happening in my own family, I was shocked because I thought I did every single thing I could to prevent any of this. And so I started to look up my life and I'm like, my mom was the same age when my father passed away and she had to raise three children. Now here I am needing to do the same thing. What was my part in it? While what happened was incredibly hurtful and it separated us siblings and it disrupts the whole family. It affects not only the mother, it affects the survivor, it affects the sibling, everyone in the household. What is it that I can do now to change the outcome of this? And so I started to look deeper inside of me. And when I did that, I realized like there was a lot of limiting beliefs, a lot of moments in childhood that I didn't even know affected me as an adult. Like it became a big rabbit hole. And ultimately, my daughter was separated from me, and I felt like our relationship was not ever going to be mended. And I fought really, really hard for it. I was like, I need to make sure that my children know that I'm with them and I'm for them. And so I started to go to like different kinds of therapy, different kinds of coaching, and I learned about emotional needs. And that when I started following Dr. Bowlby, it's a psychotherapist back in like the 60s in the UK. And I learned about our attachment styles and how that starts from 0 to 3. And so I started to think about it. I'm like, okay, so if our nervous system, or we learn our emotional attachment from our parents, and say there's a household where the mom is anxious, like me, I was anxious and I was, just kind of like not present, emotionally present. I was making sure that the house was taken care of. I make sure like things were clean and the kids were going to school and all of that. But emotionally present wise, I was very aggressive and I wasn't really there emotionally. So I started to think about like, okay, so what about the households where mom is working a lot and dad is maybe some fathers are alcoholic or different kinds of abuse. What is a child experiencing in those 3 years? So I looked at myself and, here's my ner I if I cried, I learned like crying isn't okay. I would get, like disciplined or something like that. And that's what I started to also do. And I'm like, oh my gosh, so what did I do to my kids as I'm learning this? Because from they were always with me. I always believed that from 0 to 3 is very important. I just didn't know how important it was. So as I started to learn about the different kinds of ways attachment styles behave, like the avoidant and the anxious and the disorganized and the secure, I wanted to also understand what my children's attachments were because at this point now, according to the study, from by age 7, the limiting belief is already in there. And by 13, those limiting beliefs take hold and they start to shape who we become. So I'm like, okay, my kids were 18 and 11 at these times. What is it now that I can do to change that, to have better relationship with them? And so we did a lot of deep diving into that and I learned their attachment style. So my youngest daughter is an avoidant, so she would pull away. And then I am also an avoidant, so I would pull away. So I'm like, okay, why can't we reach each other? We understand the attachment style, so why and the behavior, so why can't we still connect? And then I learned about like our love languages also plays a factor in that. So when I was younger, I was always cuddled a lot and take like I felt safe with my cousins and my mom. So physical touch is important, but I also grew up in a very large household. So my grandparents had a big house and we had lots of family members. So I liked the feeling of being belonged. So I started to look and see how those things affected my children too. And we would sit down and we would talk about it. Whenever there's a disconnection and she pulls away, I know that she needs time before I can go back and talk to her. But it was still not enough. I was like, this can't be just it. There's got to be more. And that's when I learned about our emotional needs, like our nervous system needs to feel safe. And safety can also be in words. Whenever I'm talking to my child and they're telling me how they feel, and I interrupt them and I correct them and I give them solutions, that's when they start to pull away because emotionally they don't feel safe enough to talk to me. But also, I was very aggressive mom, so they can't handle the switch now that's happening. Their nervous system is still attached to old me, old programming. So the relationship repair language just kind of came about with me experimenting with all three of my children to see how my nervous system, when I'm dysregulated, how it affects them. How do they behave when I'm angry? How do they behave when I'm sad? How do they behave when I'm overwhelmed or frustrated? Similarly, how do they behave when they're feeling those things? And what is the support that they need? Because if my daughter is feeling very, very angry, me coming to her and giving her a solution automatically causes this connection. She's not going to feel heard or understood. So that's up to me as a parent to have that relational responsibility to say, okay, what I want to listen to you, and I want to listen to you from your heart without making this about me. And that's a very difficult thing to do because I want it to be right, but it's also important for us to acknowledge, for me to acknowledge those unmet needs, those unmet emotional impact moments where, as a child, she may have felt dismissed and that made her feel like she wasn't good enough, or I overcorrected her and it made her feel like she wasn't good enough. So those moments are going to come back up. And as a way to create relational like loyalty, we have to reset. I have to come in here and say, okay, I have done it wrong. And I'm willing to look and see how that affected you and how we can do it together differently. And so the relationship repair language gives us a name for when those tough moments happen. So we can really be able to communicate in a way that's more observational. Like, okay, this is how it's affecting you. And this is what you need. And this is how I can support rather than that like battle. And this is my relationship with my children, but it also for my friends and people that I care about in relationships. We're not fighting each other. We're finding out what is it that we need and how we can solve it, or not even solve it, but like how can we grow together from it. And this is also something that I practice at work too, because especially with people that we are working with, sometimes they have a hard life and they're going through a lot. And when they come to work, it can extend out into the work. If someone's overwhelmed, they don't know what to do, they're not working in the same kind of integrity that they used to. And instead of complaining about them and trying to micromanage them, in those moments it could be like, hey, what is it that you need for support right now? And how can I be the best support that you need? Rather than, it's like meeting somebody where they are rather than punishing them. So I have said a lot of things right now, so please interrupt me.
Yes, and there are many favorites from what you said to focus on, and I think each of them could possibly be like a discussion on its own. And before we go into understanding your relationship repair model, I would like to hear something you mentioned about the emotional presence, that a lot of times when someone is reacting in a relationship, right, then they don't often need a solution. They just need
Exactly.
that emotional presence, right?
Mhm.
And this is something often misunderstood in today's world, in today's relationship dynamics. And it is constantly changing, right? That the roles and responsibilities and demands of job and society and whatnot, that the dynamics is constantly evolving. And I would love to hear a little bit more from you on that. Like when we are always strained, when we are always pushed to our limits in our daily lives, when maintaining a family is not easy, right? That is providing, and there is caring, and then there's supporting all of that. Then how do we make sure that we are emotionally present, but at the same time we are not burning out? So
Oh, that's a big one. Sorry, continue.
yeah, so I would love to hear your thoughts around this. Like, I can be emotionally present, but what if that takes a toll on me and then I am burning
Mhm.
out, right? It can happen for both. So how does that dynamics play out in context of emotional presence? I would love to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah. That's such an important aspect of the whole repair in the first place, because repair starts with me first, right? For me to be able to be in a healthy relationship with someone else, I also need to be in a healthy relationship with me. And the more I learn about me, the easier I'll start to have capacity to be able to do that. So the reason why I created this book is that it comes with a test, a quiz, kind of like the love language, kind of like the attachment style. And this quiz tells us what our top two emotional needs are. And I think it's important, right, to be able to know what our emotional needs are, period. Not for a relationship, but for ourselves. Because if I don't even know when I'm feeling overwhelmed or I'm feeling burnout, how can I even be of service to anybody else? Like you said, everyday life, you get up, you go to work. At work, there's pressure coming home, then the kids may not have done the dishes or nobody has cooked. And then there's an unexpected bill sitting on there, and the spouse needs to get picked up, or something has happened, and it can get very overwhelming. So, the idea around being able to be so regulated or to be emotionally present, it really boils down to what is it that we need in moments of like that. So one morning, I'll give you an example. I got out of my condo and I'm standing on the grass because this is what I love to do. I like to stand on the grass and ground myself. And I just kind of look up in the heavens, say my little prayer or wish, and then I'm ready to go to work. I go to work, I go into my car and it doesn't start. Now, that is a catalyst for a terrible day. Oh, my car can't start. I get dysregulated. I'm going to be late for work. I have time anxiety. When I get to work, I'm like, oh, I can't believe my car didn't start. I'm calling somebody to say, hey, my car can't start. And that person offers me a solution. And in that moment, I have to know that this person means well, but I don't need a solution right now. I just want it to be heard. I just want it to be like, have a place to say, oh, this is heavy. And that person listening and saying, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. That's a lot. How can I support you? So it's those little kinds of conversation that makes the emotional presence in the moment. And it really starts within us because we can't expect other people to come and not offer solution. That's just how the world is. It's it's up to me to be able to do that. But that is a lot of hard work. It is a lot of, it's time consuming and it can be very frustrated. So it's about having a plan, making sure that I am understanding my behaviors, what gets me upset. And when I get upset, what is it that I need? And when I can fulfill that for myself or understand I can ask somebody for help, it makes a big, big difference to be able to be in that kind of like connection with myself. So there were times when when I wasn't present and I didn't know that I was doing that. I had no idea. But what helped was me getting curious about it instead of feeling shame that, this thing is I'm behaving this way over and over again, and people are going to suggest going to therapy, or people are going to suggest that I need work or whatever the case is, instead of taking that as a negative, getting curious and learning, be on the learning journey, switch my mode into learning, because that was the only way that I was able to recognize what my patterns were, how I was showing up, how I could be better regulated. So the journey within. alone is a beautiful exploration, but it also requires having the right kinds of support and the right kind of people along the way because and that's why I'm creating this repair language because it's not an easy journey. We've all had to do it alone. And then when we get to the part where we are striving and people are not meeting us where we are, then the more disconnection happens and more boundaries are being set as walls instead of bridges. And we're not able to truly say, you know, in this moment, I'm upset and I'm feeling frustrated and I really need to take a break. Being able to recognize that I need something and what that is. Having the support system around that amplifies it, that says, I feel like you're dysregulated and what can we do? Like, what is it? What can I do? We're not going to be able to do that just by textbook or just by reading something online. We have to be able to go deeper into the work, whether that's, working with a coach or working with a therapist or a workshop or whatever that looks like, challenging ourselves to go out of the norm, because then we get eventually everything just keeps happening and it keeps repeating. And we're going to go down that same overwhelm, that same burnout. And then that's going to like take a toll on you. So, for me now, I can recognize when I'm feeling burnt out, my shoulders starts to hurt. This one right here, it starts to hurt immediately. And that tends to give me a signal that I need to slow down. I need to write everything down that I have on my task list and prioritize because in between there, I need to take care of my needs. Maybe I'm not feeling supported. Maybe I don't have community. Our core human needs are to feel belong, to feel loved, to feel accepted, to feel valued. And when those aren't being met, that's where the burnout is going to happen. So I would say, what is an individual's journey to understanding what that is for them? That's a beautiful exploration that can only be revealed by their journey. Darren, start writing. Start poetry. When you're feeling sad, write it down. When you're feeling angry, write it down. That's sometimes where beautiful music happens. That's where stories get told, books get sold, and ideas starts to spark. So at the minute I'm feeling overwhelmed, I know that there's something that I need to go and do.
Yes, I don't see my questions to my guests as
Okay,
a right or wrong.
okay.
Okay,
Okay,
I see the questions as basically areas to explore, let's say.
okay.
Okay, I
Okay,
don't,
but
yeah.
okay. I
Um, uh,
appreciate that.
yes, and I hope that we are not deviating from the relationship repair
Yes.
model that we are going to explore
Yeah.
because you mentioned the emotional presence concept, and I just
Hmm.
wanted to keep that at the forefront of our discussion today. And what you said, it's beautiful and very, very true in terms
Okay.
of the strains in today's relationship. And another thing you mentioned that really resonates with me is that it's not something you do only once. It has to be something that you build into your habit. So you need to know when your stress bucket is getting full
Yes.
and when you need to take care of yourself before you go and face something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is very beautifully said. And again, for anyone listening, I would just go back and say that I call this section fail with me. That often
Yeah.
we think that we have failed. We have failed in a
Hmm.
relationship, we have failed in responsibilities, we have failed in personal growth, and can be in parenting.
Yeah.
But it is actually a signal that you said, it's hurting my shoulder. It's a signal. It's saying that
Hmm.
maybe it's time to take that pause, remind, reflect, and go on. This is something very interesting of my personal experience when it comes to like writing things down when I am upset. I also write things down that, okay, this is what happened. And I try to understand why I was upset. And sometimes that solution is not available immediately. So sometimes I'm upset and I just don't figure out why I am upset. But I write it down in my journal with a question mark that this happened, I was upset. I don't know what is making me upset.
Hmm.
Okay. And the answer comes back, sometimes in a matter of days or sometimes even matter of weeks that, oh,
Hmm.
because when we are strained, we often lack that clarity that what is happening. Our vision is clouded, like we are going in a fog or mist kind of a
Yeah.
road and we don't see what is ahead of us. So being being present and have that kind of clarity is a sign that we are doing this right, and it can get clouded. It definitely can, but the
Yeah.
uh, habits we are talking about, it's not for one day. It is something
Mm-mm.
that we need to embrace and make that a part of ourselves, and that's something I try to communicate through my work on this podcast, that it let us learn how to be better versions of ourselves. So success is not in materialistic terms. Success is in terms of well-being of ourselves and our loved ones. That's sort of my motivation behind this podcast, and I hope it reaches as many people as it needs to.
I hope so too. It's a beautiful way of being. And you're absolutely right that it needs to be integration. And integration means when the triggers happen or the moments happen, the dysregulation happen, how am I experiencing that? Because if I didn't know before, I have to pay attention to how it's now happening and being present with it. So I won't be able to do that if I don't have those experiences too. And they're all learning opportunities. I feel like anger has taught me my passion. Healthy anger taught me what I really truly value and I believe in and what I'm willing to fight for. Regret has taught me how to really treasure someone, how to truly treasure a connection. There's many lessons. Resentment taught me forgiveness. It taught me how to accept me fully and whole. But in order for me to get all of that, I had to experience, like, the regrets of failing as a mom, the regret as failing as a wife or a partner or as a woman. What was it that I needed to even understand? I had father wounds that, something simple as I was 6 years old and I believed that my father didn't want me. And based on that belief, I made decisions and choices to reinforce that I was not going to be wanted. And that affected how I showed up in so many relationships, including the relationship with myself. And so it's like, such a beautiful, I think it's hard when I initially went on the journey. It was initially hard to say, oh my gosh, there was a lot of blame and shame. But I had to look at those blame and shame to see where I can, oh my gosh, this is out of alignment with me. This is not who I want to become. This is not who I want to be. And along the way, finding grace and compassion to acknowledge the ways that I hadn't met my own emotional needs. And when I allowed other people to not meet them, but I can also acknowledge where it wasn't met and forgiving those moments. So it's truly about the integration process.
Talking about the integration, this is again something that I have explored on the podcast from time to time. And from my personal experience as well with people that I speak to, friends and family, that in case of relationships, we do not always go into it with a lot of clarity. Like we do not understand who we are, and we have a vague sort of ego around that. So we don't have that clarity of who we are, who we want to be, and that's a result of conditioning from family, society, and whatnot. And when we go into a relationship with that ego, what is getting hurt is basically our understanding of our surroundings, whereas what we truly are, and we are clashing for wrong reasons.
Mhm.
And I would like to hear your thoughts. And again, as I was saying, that I don't see questions as right or wrong answer.
I hear you.
I am curious,
Yes,
just to
I
just
understand.
very recently, one of my friend is going through separation, and
Mm-hmm.
he approached me and he said, "What can I do?" And I told him that, of course you get help and you can do certain things at your level to do this right. But I realized that he was not in a phase where he could accept and listen. Sometimes ego
Mm-hmm.
makes our cup full. If your
Yeah.
cup is full, you cannot take anything. So
Mm-hmm.
whether you can accept something from someone outside depends on how full you are with that vanity. And I
Yeah.
pointed him to the right direction. He couldn't take it. And I don't blame him. A lot of times people do not see whether they need the work or not,
Mm-hmm.
so that they could work on it and they could get better.
Yeah.
And instead they are fighting, and it just goes into chaos and noise and whatnot. Coming back to the original question is that we many times when these arguments happen, this is basically two egos fighting as opposed to two
Yeah.
loved ones fighting. And
Yeah.
I want to hear your thoughts on that. It's probably a broader question, but just to hear your ideas.
You're absolutely right. I was thinking about this today. I was going to make a video on it because, like I said, right, at 6 years old, I believed that I wasn't wanted by my father. And that made me make decisions that sabotaged the very need for connection that I truly desired. When people aren't able to receive that, what I realized for me, it was because I had so much shame. I didn't want to be wrong. I didn't want to I didn't want to be seen as the bad one. I wanted to blame. I wanted to make it somebody else's problem. So when two people are really fighting, it's a little boy and a little girl who had one moment or two moments, little pockets of moments where they weren't heard or they didn't have the opportunity to feel seen, or they felt blamed for something that they weren't responsible for. And that's what's activated. And one is saying, like, hey, I didn't mean to do that. Please don't leave me. I'm not trying to do that. But that comes out as, you know what? I don't want this. You're doing this. This is all your fault because the shame and the ego starts taking over. And so if there's two people who have this completely different experience in life, and they don't know and they're clashing, that is such a big, huge impact in a relationship. It needs people to tell it like, hey, you got to confront your shame. You have to look at things. And again, that could be done aggressively depending on a coach or something, right? But I think when it comes to me, as far as a friend, if it's a friend and they're going through something like that, I really go straight for the heart. Like, what is it that you want from the relationship? What is it that you lack from it? What is it that it's not fulfilling for you? And from there, we can start peeling back the onion and really understand, like, if my friend is having issues with his wife, does he feel disrespected? Does he feel not wanted? What is his core need that's not being met? Because that's where ego is saying, hey, no, dude, I don't want, like, what is it that I truly want out of a relationship? Especially in a relationship dynamic, is this other person, they come with a whole nother set of limiting beliefs, a whole set of experiences. Like, I, whenever I get loud, my youngest daughter, she immediately freezes up. She freezes up and she doesn't know what to do. And she becomes like, oh my God, do you need this? And she becomes a people pleaser. Her entire body goes back to an 8-year-old version of her in that moment because her nervous system is dysregulated. And that's really what that conflict is somebody is just not feeling safe in love. And so, that's this test that yeah, it is like a quiz, right? It's 30 questions, and all of those 30 questions really talks about what our emotional needs are, and it ranks it. It's all of our emotional needs. So we can have a way to know that, because when friends like that come along and they don't know what to do, going to therapy is not going to work because For someone to go to therapy, they have to find the right therapist. Go sit down, tell them everything. And then they may not really gel with that therapist. And then, like, okay, I got to go do another one. And I have to do another one. And then this money being spent and time is going by. And there's all of these resistances that's happening. So it's like there's so much against people to break through from that ego, from that state of being. It's a big wall. And at the times when that's happening, then the repair has to switch with self, right? I repaired my relationship with my father wound, and that's allowed me to see that men were born with responsibility. They were born that they're the provider and they have to find the solution and they have to stand tall. Men were never really taught that they can relax, they can have a place to cry. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to show softness. It's okay to say, I need you. It's okay to get down on your knees and apologize or be apologized to. And so, if a man has so much responsibility, where did he get nurtured and how is he going to get nurtured from a woman who were taught to probably like me? My needs weren't important. I am subservient to to the male. Anything that I do is not going to really be witnessed because I'm too emotional. And so if I'm not safe as a woman to know that this is what my man needs, or like I need to put aside all of my need and put him on a pedestal and make sure all of his needs is being met, we're not entering in a space of relationship with each other at all. We're coming in already as a disadvantage. And there's a lot of deeper things too. There's codependency that storms from childhood, right? That storms from like the spoiled the one who grew up what we would judge as spoiled. Yeah, maybe they might have been spoiled, but what happened is that their autonomy was robbed from them. Being able to say that, oh, you are capable of this. They don't know that because they are expected to have that sense of, oh, well, you know what to do because you grew up in a certain kind of privilege. So there's like so many nuances to relationship, and it's really important for each individual to take the time and say, I'm having a rough relationship, but what is my role in this? How can I show up as a better partner? I mean, there were times when I had to write down for myself what my needs were, like what I want from a relationship. And how can I even give that to myself? So it's like being able to go into this with curiosity. And I'm going to break down a little bit of the framework of how I do it, right? When it comes to the repair and relationship, I like to say, let's envision this table, right? Whether it's a dinner table or it's a corporate table, you're at work, right? These are the two scenarios. Let's say I'm inviting you to sit at this table with me. And I would like for you to bring in curiosity. Because when we approach this with curiosity, we're not looking at the shame and we're not looking at the blame. We're going to put that to the side. How do you behave, Abra, when you're angry? How do you behave when you're sad? How do you behave when you're frustrated or overwhelmed or when you're resentful? What happens to you in those moments? What are your thoughts saying? And everybody gets a chance to go around and answer these questions. And we get to like really understand different perspectives now because not all of us is going to behave the same way. So for me, when I'm angry, I get loud. When I get loud, that's because I need to prove myself and I need to show somebody that I'm right. In that moment, what I need is to validate my own experience. But how that affects the people around me, they don't want to be around me. They're not going to want to talk to me. I just yelled at them. I disrespected them. They're not going to feel like I care about them at all. So what support can someone give me when they see that I'm angry? What kind of support would I even receive? This is the conversations that we need to have at the table. This is the conversations we need to have with our children, our parents, the people that are dear and wonderful that we care about, our friends. Like, of course, we're going to have attachments to our coworkers or people that we work with because we value them. We wouldn't want to work with them if we didn't value them. So, or be in relationship with them. So it's kind of like a way to explore each other each other's needs and being able to experience a journey together. Because let's say today I struggled with anger, but next week you witness me pause and you're like, and you witness me go to you and say, I really need a space to vent. Do you have the capacity right now? And then you're like, oh my gosh, you are happy to support me because I'm asking for it. Versus if I'm angry and I'm like, oh my God, Obra, this and this and this and this and this. Now, how does that make you feel? You're like, it could feel like an attack, or you have to hold space. Like, okay, this person's yelling at me. Am I going to defend myself? Am I going to listen to them? There's a lot of disconnection to happen in those moments. If we sit down and we go in with curiosity and we give a name to what we need, it can help us be in such better relationships with each other. We get to be on the journey together, and that creates that emotional safety that I am now open to whatever suggestion you have. Because you have, not proven, I was going to say proven, you've showed me that I am important in this relationship and I'm valued, and you are absolutely happy to be here with me. It doesn't mean that we're going to do it perfectly, but we're going to always come back to the table, so to speak.
That's a lot, sis. And yes, it is important for us to see those mirrors, that what are my emotional needs. And I think in today's relationship landscape, we often walk into a relationship without that clarity,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it becomes troublesome down the road. And then
Mm-hmm.
again, we are not reflecting on ourselves. It's just that, one person hurting the other person's ego and into that. Before I ask my next question, we have almost utilized an hour. Are you okay to go ahead?
Yes, I'm good.
So, as I was saying, that we often walk into a relationship without that clarity that you are talking about, and that is so beautiful. And I love that you have set it up as a questionnaire, that it's something we can ask ourselves. And therapy is good for in its own merit, but therapy does not always work if we do not connect with the therapist, and if we do not know what are we trying to achieve from therapy. So which is, I believe that this self check-in that you are talking about is very important, that we need to be honest with ourselves first before
Mm-hmm.
we go and get into a relationship. We create that bond and we can make both sides work. And in terms of understanding each other, I feel, and you touched upon this very beautifully, that everyone's world is so different. There can be, even if someone grows up in the same sort of culture and community, the possibilities that define ourselves is so varied from one another, that it is impossible for one person to know others completely based on the facts. So which is where these check-ins are very important. In terms of the relationship conflicts, I'm curious to hear some aspects from you, that a lot of times relationships do not work and then people move on to the next relationship. But in effect, they are carrying the same brokenness with them to the next one, instead of taking time to rewire or reparent. I've seen friends who have like, oh, my marriage didn't work, I'm going to get married again, or I'm going to do this again. And again they say, no, 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 it's not working with my partner anymore. So, and I look back at my own life, that when I had a stage when I felt my ego was hurt, and I carried that hurt for a long time. And then at some stage I realized that I don't need to. It's a weight that, like, it's very similar to how you mentioned that you are burned out and you can feel something on your shoulder. And I
Yeah.
felt that I was carrying something like a really very heavy bag on my shoulder. And then I felt I don't need to do that. And the moment I let that baggage go, I was so free and so relieved and so comfortable. And then I found that gusto in life that, oh, okay, I can do anything. So wanted to hear your thoughts around that. Okay, we carry all this brokenness with ourselves. How do we interrupt that? How do we interrupt that,
Yeah.
heal our
Um,
wounds, and then move on?
yeah. I heard a long time ago that when you have a divorce or a separation or a relationship that doesn't work, you need to take 30 days. 30 days, no contact, and be intentional with that 30 days and really self-reflect. And I feel like that's a very pivotal step that people miss because oftentimes I see guys just start dating. Oh, I'm separated, I'm gonna date. But you have to take a moment to see how I showed up in that relationship. What was my part in it? And even let's say I am blameless, right? I still sacrifice a lot of my needs to and abandon myself in order to make a relationship work. I put myself in so many positions to put someone else's need ahead of mine that I didn't even consider what I was lacking or what I didn't need. Now there's also my part in it. And that's the part that I got excited about. I really wanted to learn what my needs were. And I didn't go immediately to emotional needs. I went to my love language and I went to my attachment style specifically because the attachment style, the love languages teaches us how we like to be loved, and the attachment style teaches us how we sabotage it. So I was like, okay, so as an avoidant, how did I sabotage these relationships? And being able to go down and see, okay, when I feel blamed, I blame this person, but what was underneath the blame? And that led me to an inner child workshop that gave me an opportunity to see that deep down in my core, I was really angry at my dad, really, really angry at my dad. And I never acknowledged that anger from my inner child state. As an adult, I'm like, oh yeah, I could see why I was angry. I could see why this and that, but I never really got it out in that moment. So I was able to free that up. And when I freed that up, I could see now how I was like how that belief got a hold of me in anger. And so my anger towards other partners or other people that I bring into my life, that kept showing up in different relationships. So until I got to that part, I was just repeating the same cycle. I was doing the same thing. I was looking for my father's love. I chose people who wouldn't be emotionally available. And I'm searching for my dad's love, searching for my dad's love. It's not working. And I'm constantly doing that. It robbed me of the opportunity to see that person for who they are. What are their wounds? How are they receiving me? What is it that they need? So that portion is so important to learn. It's so important to learn and also integrate because there's the other part of the gap that I believe happens when someone start going on the personal development journey or the discovery journey. They stay in the intellectual side of it and they don't integrate. And so words that are blame language now takes effect. If ever I'm in conflict with someone and I start to say the word you, I am blaming because I am looking for someone to blame in that moment and I'm blaming that other person. If I'm reading a book and I'm thinking about someone else and that someone else needs this, that is a ego check for me because now I'm observing and assessing other people's behavior and I'm not looking at me. And I think that's where a lot of couples get into a lot more conflict because then it becomes a you did this, so I did that, and I did this, so you did that, instead of like, let's really look and see how that affected us and let's see how we can do it differently. And for me, my being right was tied to the behaviors that I experienced with my mom and like, seeing how she handled conflict. And so that what the belief that came from me was that I don't have a voice, but inside of me, I have a voice and I want to be right and I'm going to prove to you that I'm right. And so that ego state now gets attached and if I do not go and do the work that's needed there, I'm starting relationships again in the same loop. And that next person is going to experience the same version of me. And I'm not giving myself a chance to say, I could do this differently. And I'm not giving myself a chance to meet that person for who they truly are either. And so I think, along with the awareness piece, really we need curiosity. We need time because the other person that comes into our lives can be the greatest love of our lives, what we've always prayed for, what we've been on our knees begging for. And because we haven't done that work, we've just missed a huge opportunity to find fulfillment in relationships.
Yes, that is very true. And how I love how you explain that, because it's something people assume and then they go into the relationship, but they don't put in that effort of understanding themselves. When we are saying trigger, it's basically something we are keeping inside, that you is basically me, because the trigger means something has to be inside that gets flared up. Like you can pull the trigger of a gun, that gunpowder is within the gun, it's not somewhere outside. So I love that analogy you put. That's beautiful. In my podcast, in Stories and Stanza, I always request my guests that if they have written something, then could they read that in the show? I am a hobbyist writer myself, I'm a poet. And to me, my writing comes in a very specific voice that I like to hear this. And I feel that when a writer shares their work in their own words and their own voice, it's the most authentic version of that particular text. So you have written a book, and I would love to hear from you anything that you want to read from the book, so that anyone listening to our conversation today, they get an idea about the book. Because when we pick up a book, when we see the description or the book blurb, it doesn't do justice to what goes into the book. So if you would like to share something with us, can be anything.
Yeah. I had something pulled up and then you know what? I said, let me change it a little bit. So I'm gonna read like just a little bit from it's just one page from the beginning of the first chapter. And this part is called the break and thank you very much for that. It's awesome. I want to acknowledge that. This one is called the breakdown before the breakthrough. We shut down, lash out, or give up, not because we want to destroy connection, but because we are aching for safety. Before we talk about how to repair connection, we have to talk about what breaks it in the first place. Because conflict isn't about what was said, it's about what was felt. When our bodies and hearts interpreted in the split-second moment that no one else saw, and that's what I like to call emotional impact. It's the pause in their voice, it's the look in their eyes, it's a space that suddenly felt unfamiliar. And just like that, our defenses come online. We don't shut down because we're dramatic. We don't get loud because we want control. We don't retreat because we don't care. We do it because something inside of us, something old, something scared, feels like it's happening again. Unless we know how to slow that moment down and get honest about what's actually needing underneath that reaction, we just keep repeating the same rupture, hoping it ends differently this time. And what if there was another way? This chapter is about that, the beginning of that shift, not by blaming your past, but by understanding it, not by fixing your reactions, but by getting curious about what they've been trying to protect. Because repair begins with awareness, and awareness begins with compassion. We'll walk through those patterns together, the ones your body learned long before your mind could explain them. We'll gently uncover what they're trying to help you survive so you can finally move forward, move towards connection instead of conflict. What if your reaction weren't the problem, but the doorway? And we can begin there.
That is beautiful and poetic.
Thank
If you're watching it on YouTube or if you're listening to any audio podcast platform, we'll put the book link in the episode description. If you liked our discussion today, please go and check out the book and see how it speaks for you, or pass it on to someone who might need to hear that. This is what I try to do in Stories and Stanza, is amplify the voices that need to be heard in my simple capacity. I think we can conclude our discussion on that note. And I like to say to our listeners that we have all these conflicts and challenges in our world today, but essentially, deep down, we are wired for connection. We seek that connection, we thrive on it. So, when we are fighting or when we are kind of going into arguments, we essentially want to connect. It is not like we want to break away from that connection. And please feel free to add something, to conclude our discussion today if we have missed anything.
And at the end of the day, when we start speaking from our hearts and our heart's desire, a lot more relationships can survive. I think we just need to be able to say, I'm hurt, I love you, I'm hurt, and I would like a space to feel heard or understood or acknowledged. But when we start to hold each other's hearts instead of fighting each other's heart and really get curious, I've experienced it. My relationship with my children and even my mother, people that I care about, has been a beautiful experience because of this process and this framework. And I want to say the experience. It's not even a process, an experience. And when we get really curious about each other, we're gonna find so much love, so much love. And that's what I want. I want to be able to spread love all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And once again, thank you to our viewers and listeners today. If you think that the podcast brings you meaningful discussions, kindly follow us and support our work in any platform of your choice. Thank you once again, Lazina, for joining us and
Thank
such
you.
deep thoughts, such beautiful, calm ideas. And I hope that it can reach someone who needs to hear it.
I think
Okay.
you're still recording. That's why I was like, I wasn't sure if I
Oh,
was still
yeah,
good.
no, no.
Yeah, of course.
With that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm okay with that. I mean, you told me earlier that happens to me too. So I like to also, when the conversation is flowing, it's meant to be, right? So
Yes.
I appreciate the conversation
Yes,
though.
I when I started off the podcast, then I used to think that I don't know how I will go, and maybe I should preempt all the questions. But later I realized that it's not a checklist that I'm doing. I want to hear from my guest, and it's all about the guest. And that I don't see
Yeah.
this as one right or wrong answer. And the podcast is in its third year now, and I'm sure I'm doing something right. Otherwise, it will not have connected with guests.
So one of the things that I learned about myself is that when I talk, I speak about lived experience. I give actual examples of what's happening because I learned that we don't know how to name what we're feeling or name our experiences.
Hmm.
So the more examples that someone gets, the better they can relate
Hmm.
and they can see themselves in it or they can get curious about it.
Hmm.
And so sometimes I can go on, but the YouTubes and the algorithms and stuff, they don't like they call that over explaining. And I'm like,
Hmm.
well, it might be over explaining to you, but to a human being, it's not. They actually
Hmm.
want to hear and see themselves in it. So that's why I asked if it was like, oh my God, did I answer the question? Because sometimes I'm
Hmm.
like, oh my God, please bring me back, help me, bring me back in.
I was recording an episode with a therapist here in Melbourne, and
Hmm.
he said something very interesting in terms of the social media algorithms and stuff. And we couldn't finish up our discussion in one setting. So and it was mid of work day for both of us. So we utilized that hour, and then we had to kind of come back and record the remaining part of it.
That's awesome.
So in today's social media, all algorithms are designed to keep people in a very agitated way. Whatever is agitating and unstable in people, that's what it is meant to do. Not meant to, make you calm and peaceful and mindful about life. That
Mm.
is not how it is designed. Which is why people are, we are living in a time where we are constantly seeking stimulation, but in that case we are overloading our nervous system. And I guess with our work in a, what I am trying to do in the podcast, what you are trying to do in your work, your book, all of that, it speaks to one another because it is trying to do the same thing at our own level. And that
Yes.
is this is no wonder that we are talking today, right? And there is certain amount of synergy that is definitely bringing us together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find that there's a lot of, especially when it comes to social media and stuff, there's a lot of shame-based approach to make people feel riled up. And I'm like, no, we need to we need to show more compassion. The best things that's helped me in my darkest moments is when someone met me with kindness and compassion when I was going through. That made me want to look at myself. That made me interested in doing it differently because I experienced someone's softness and their love and and that ignited in me what I've always known to be true, that love, there's only one emotion, it's love. Well, and then there's fear, but that's the absence of love. But it's still just one emotion, and when we're not feeling it, we get scared and then we start to react.
Exactly. Very true.
Yeah.
No, thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time today. Yeah. And yeah, if you ever feel like connecting again, collaborating
Oh,
again, do
absolutely.
a lot
Absolutely.
of my
Yeah.
guests, like, they come back from time to time. I mean, I have
Hmm.
done repeated discussions with a lot of my guests because of, I
Yeah.
think, that synergy and that connect. I haven't created any sort of community per se because it's too much of work and
You
my
got to have balance.
yes. But a lot of people who have been on the podcast, they come back and said, "Oh, I want to talk about something else. Can I do that on your show?" Always welcome. And now that the channel is getting some kind of support from YouTube, it just became part of the partner program and all that.
Oh,
So
good.
I am hoping to do a lot more on the podcast going forward.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
well, I am always available and open. I'd love to have more discussions. If anything comes up, I will also share with you. But if you can think of anything, I'm down.
What I keen to do is, like, this is a podcast and it's very, people have to listen to it and then they can ask questions or whatever. But
Yeah.
I am thinking about doing a little bit more live discussions and things where,
Oh, that would be great.
yeah, so I'm still trying to figure it out because what happens is now I'm recording on Zoom. So once the recording is done, then I edit it and video goes to YouTube, audio goes to audio podcast platform.
Hmm.
There are options to multi-stream. It goes into Facebook, it goes into YouTube, it goes into Instagram, that sort of thing. And then that doesn't need to be an episode per se, but it
Right.
can be a live discussion and we can sort of work on, like, we can promote it earlier, saying, oh, okay, this is the time we are going to come and please join and ask your questions. That's
Yeah.
something I intend to do. And I would love to do this at some stage in person as well because I'm meeting a few people from here in Melbourne as well so that I can bring the right people in a forum. And you said this in yourself that we sometimes think that we need help. We're going to a therapist, it didn't work out. You go to another therapist and that doesn't work out, right? And you,
Yeah.
in an effect, you're burning your money and your energy and you're not solving anything, right? So
Yeah.
what is it we can do at our own level to make life better? That's the crux of.
Hmm.
So maybe at some stage, and you are a wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful speaker, if you like to do some live sessions, we could do that. I haven't figured out
Absolutely. Yeah.
the tech part of it. Okay, this is what I do now. It is from Zoom, but I
Yeah.
realized that if I do live stream from Zoom, it doesn't work that well. That's
Yeah.
something, I would love to do at some stage.
One of the things that my brother told me, he's like, you should, and his suggestion is that I should have what's called offer for repair in the moment.
Mm,
And so I think that, I mean, not an offer, but like even if it's a live, right? Some people who would like to know actual practical way that they can
mm,
repair in the moment, right then and there, advice or whatever, right? Like say your friend pops up, right? And
mm,
like here's what's happening, how do I repair? I can give him a practical solution in the
mm,
moment or guidance, I would say. And yeah, I think that's a really good idea too, just to like,
mm.
okay, what's your repair question, right? And
Something very, very funny happened. There's one of my wife's friend. She called me and she said, "You are a great speaker. You're doing all this podcast and stuff. Can you talk to my husband?" And I said, "On what should I talk to him about?" Says he's always very angry and upset and all of that. Please talk to him. And I say, "Okay, I'll talk to him." And when he came into the conversation, he was clearly not seeing me as someone who could help him.
Yeah.
His wife said, "Okay, talk to him," and he became a little bit abusive. He said, "What do you know?" And all. I said, "Look, I'm not imposing anything on you.
Yeah.
If you need help, you have to decide
Yeah.
whether you need help or not."
Exactly.
Same thing happened with my friend as well. He is now into separations and has involved
Hmm.
lawyers and stuff. And I said, you can you when he came to me like a year before, and I pointed him in the direction that put on that effort, do that work, ask yourself, take that time for you, and then take that time for connecting with your wife, because you're both invested into the relationship. Your
Hmm.
child, you've got your house, and you've got your life on that. Don't throw that away. Okay, and
Hmm.
work on this, and you can figure out a solution.
Yeah.
But apparently he didn't, and it just became uglier and uglier. I'm saying that not everyone is ready to accept. That's
Yeah.
a very
I mean, that was a hard journey for me because, for my situation, my ex-husband, I was married twice. My first husband was very abusive and I had to move away from the situation. And then my second marriage, I jumped into it right away. I didn't take the time to get to know myself. And for 12 years, we were married and I have children with him and he adopted my oldest daughter and then he sexually abused her. And so after that, that was the big, like what the heck happened? And so the next relationship I got into, he just wasn't doing the work. And so I had to do the work for me because I can't like stay here and, be be taken for granted or not feeling valued or not feeling belonged or we're not in a like we I have to be cared about too. I'm
mm,
not gonna just abandon my needs or
mm,
myself or my desire to have a partner that honors me.
mm,
So I gotta go find out how to honor myself. And
yeah,
so while it is a relationship repair language, that's the title of the book, it's about the relationship with myself, ourselves too. It
precisely.
starts there.
So I had a friend who had like a picture perfect marriage. Like
Mhm.
both were working in very nice jobs and house and everything. They had everything, and she threw it away. Okay, she
Oh no.
immediately jumped into another relationship. And I asked her, "What are you doing?" I said, "Okay, fine, it's your life, your choice." She came back to me after many, many years and saying that this relationship is not working. And I said, maybe look inside, maybe try to see what you really, really want.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting that if we do not have that understanding of self, we are drawn towards the love language, but the
Hmm.
emotional language is actually more important.
Yeah. And and also, right? So your friend, right? Our friends. I don't want to like segregate it, right? But
Yeah.
I'll use myself. I have children and
Mm,
I have a mom and I have brothers and I have family members that I care about. So while I'm on the journey of self-discovery,
mm,
what happens there? Like, I can't
mm,
just abandon them. I can't just, like, there's certain relationships that I'm already in. So I got to figure out what I need from it so that I can
mm,
nurture it. And I wanted to make sure that I was a good mom. I'm so thankful for the opportunity because it allowed me to, like, really feel forgiven and have redemption because my children were able to receive me as a different mom now, and I'm parenting based on what they need versus what I needed. So the opportunities for connection, it's so deeply rooted in our entire lived family experience and our friends and the people that are care, we care about. We can leave a partner, we can leave a spouse, but we can't leave our children. We can't leave our moms and our dads and our brothers.
mm,
So we really have to look at all of that. We can't just be like, okay, I'm going to walk away from this marriage. And okay, but what about the other things that you're walking away from?
mm.
You know, it's
Yeah.
it's it's affects everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's another thing that I am doing on my podcast, and if you are curious, I'll send you one episode. So it's
Yeah.
it's my story. So one of my guests who said, "You come to my podcast and you share your story." Okay, which is what I did. It's a very different take on relationships and things. So my wife had a few mental health challenges. Okay, and for a
Mm-hmm.
longest time, I struggled to understand what those challenges were. I was kind of always looking forward to solving that. It's sort of, I see that as my biggest mystery of my life, what I came to understand, and which is why the podcast is about that. When someone is going through a mental health challenge, they often don't know what they're struggling with. And then there are people around them who are supporting them. If they do not know, then how would the carers know? And what would people outside think? So that's something I realized the hard way in my life, and which is why I feel like, going and talking about stuff and interviewing people. But essentially, this is my story. I'd love to share it with you if you are interested.
I would love, I have, you would be perfect for my Breaking the Cycle podcast. I host that with my daughter.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's about, how we are breaking the cycles in our lives.
Yeah,
And that is a beautiful that's awesome. Yeah,
because
I'd love to have you
everybody
as a guest.
told me they said that leave your family, send your daughter somewhere and everything. And then I said, no, I'll make this work. And
Yeah.
how I did that, that's my story. And I would love to
Yes.
share that with might connect with you.
Yeah. Oh my God, please. I'm gonna send you my some dates. I
Yeah.
can send you my calendar, and it can even be like a day like today because my daughter is usually available. Her boyfriend is visiting. He lives
Mm,
in a different state, so they're off having fun.
mm,
But usually it's me and her telling our stories, but mostly it doesn't like either way, right? We
mm.
both are sharing our story.
Yeah.
So I
I
would
try to
love,
tell people that, being a man is always comes with a lot of conditioning, and people don't think
yeah.
even and the people who haven't put this work onto themselves, at some stage they either become very abusive or they become addicted to something. They don't
Mm-hmm.
have a purpose. A lot of my
Yeah.
people in my circle, they go through that. Okay. And I have, with age, I've gotten very good at reading people, and I can see
Yeah.
that, oh, okay, this is where people are coming from. If they haven't put that effort in understanding themselves, they are
Mm-hmm.
just too set in their ways. Like my friend, the story that I
Yeah.
told you, it's not
Yeah.
allowed. People are
Yeah.
too full and they are not accepting. So, which is why
Yeah.
I guess being vulnerable has its own merits.
Like
Yeah.
if like I said earlier, guys were born already with responsibility
Mm,
and like you just expectations. So,
mm,
you know, modeling what it needs to look like, it's a really amazing thing because guys don't it's not easy for guys to be vulnerable and to look at that. And if you hadn't done the work that you did, you would not have been a supportive
mm,
steady presence and what your wife needed at the time, it would have completely changed the game. And I think that's so beautiful. And you're so right. Like when people don't have purpose, that's a big thing, man. And that's a discovery. Like you got to get
mm,
that from inside. Like that's why I'm so passionate about the repair language because I feel like with everything that I've been through, this is what I can create for others. And this is the difference that I can make. My lived experiences now becomes something that I had to heal from can heal others.
mm.
Yeah.
I see that a lot of people, men in my age, they are too guarded, they are protective of their own ego, and then
Hmm.
and other bit that I see is a lot of men are really disrespectful towards women. And on the surface they cover it with a facade that, okay, we respect women, but essentially they don't.
It's a lot of boys with mother wounds and father wounds, and they don't even
Yeah,
know that those things are real.
exactly. And I feel
Yeah.
that with my struggles in my life, I suddenly have the clarity to understand people, even though it's
Yeah.
not my job, but just makes my job
Yeah.
a lot easier as well. That when I walk
Mm-hmm.
into a room, I can tell who is where.
Right. So,
Upset that I'm going to present something, and somebody questions or somebody throws an oddball and I'd get upset. But now I walk into a room and I read people so well. It it just happened. And I was talking about it with a writer friend of mine in the podcast last couple of days ago, and she said something beautiful, that listening is a superpower. no, think about that there is a reason people come and tell you their stories because we know who we can tell. And it stuck with me and I said, I never realized that why people want to be on my podcast. Yeah. So lovely meeting you. Sorry I took
You know, no need to
yeah,
apologize. I had this time blocked out anyway, so it's okay. But yeah, I would love to have you on Breaking the
wonderful.
Cycle to share your
I'll
story
send you
because I
this
do.
episode. Take a look
Hmm.
and yeah, let me know. Okay.
Yeah, of
Wonderful.
course. I mean, yeah, but my daughter comes back home tomorrow and her
Yeah.
and I are gonna sync up calendars, so I'll send you a
That's all right.
date
There is no
and
rush. Yeah, that's
yeah.
okay. Cool.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, this is just starting my day. Thank you.
Yes, and it was good to meet you at the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.